All right then.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
All right then. So first and foremost, can you see me, Dr. Hussein? Can you
Yeah,
see me
yeah.
well? All right, perfect.
Just 1 second. 1 second. Let me do this operation. Okay. Yes, I can see you. I can see you. Good.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you all for joining me. First and foremost, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ali Al-Wali, and I have a PhD in renewable energy, and I am an assistant professor in the energy engineering at the engineering department at the American University of Iraq, Suleimani, AUIS. And I am actually a Sohar University alumni. So graduated not so long ago from Sohar University from the engineering department. And so this is a sort of full circle to me. I would like to thank IEEE Oman section, Sohar University branch for having me and for being part of this. I would like to thank all of you for joining us and for joining me in this workshop or webinar. And so the title to this workshop will be Success in Academia and Beyond, a list of things that I learned along the way. So this is just a short, important note to mention. It's like 5 components to this note that I think are very important, especially if I'm going to talk about things that may appear as wisdoms. Number 1, I am still figuring it out. So I am by no means there yet. I don't know pretty much, I haven't really found sort of the best way to do it or the best way to arrive there, to arrive to a successful sort of state, or I don't know even how to define it. However, we are always in a state of figuring it out, and that's a good thing. The other part is I lived under different circumstances than you. I had privileges that some of you didn't have, and I was lucky in many ways, and vice versa. I mean, you've had some privileges that I didn't have. And so this is something good to keep in mind when hearing or when listening to any sort of advice in that regard. The third part, which is kind of, this is a bit uncomfortable to me. And it's uncomfortable because I'm going to be sharing some of my successes. I only do that to sort of show you how it was done and what is possible. Nothing more than that. So it is a bit uncomfortable in that sense. Number 4, this seminar showcases mostly my successes in life. As for my failures, they are too many to count. This is an important one. Pretty much a lot of failures, mostly failures, but the part that are successful are the parts that I'm sharing with you today. Finally, this is about what I learned. This is not a how-to seminar. Don't take this as a how-to. This is mostly what I learned. It's a couple of things that I've learned along the way, precisely 13. There's more, but due to the time constraint, I'm going to discuss 13 of them. And I want you to take this and just think about it from that perspective. Different circumstances, different privileges, different situations. See it and judge for yourself. So just sort of critique it. Don't take it as it is. No, critique it and think if it's useful for you. If it's useful for you, then you can adopt it. And if it's not, well, then you can sort of have another component to it. So rule number 1, never assume you are above the task. So this is kind of an important one, actually, which is to never assume that you're above the task. And this is a symbolic figure of Achilles' heel. And the whole idea of this, or the purpose of this, is to not underestimate the task in front of you. So I remember when I was in high school in Oman, back in Oman, when I was a student in high school, my classmate, Ahmed Ali Muqbali, he would always sit next, me and him would always sit next to each other, and he would always write everything down. And just as a young kid, I would always, look at the lecturer or the teacher, and I would think, this is unnecessary. Why write this down? I'll just put it in my head. Why give too much attention? You can always revise before the exam. You can always prepare before the exam. And Ahmed never disappointed when it comes to his grades, and he never disappointed when it comes to his performance. And the reason is that Ahmed, and this is sort of the realization that I had, took it seriously. He took the details seriously. He took the task seriously. He never assumed that he was above the task. And when you take it seriously, you will sort of have this approach to things where the little things, the little details that matter, that sort of project you into a sort of a higher probability of success in that task. Those details are then preserved, and then you are paying attention to those, and sort of you can act upon them. And so that was one of the things that sort of struck me there, which is pay attention to details. So he taught me a big lesson, which is to never assume you're above the task. It might seem easy at the moment, but what's happening is that it's accumulative. With time, you're going to realize that you have missed so many details that the probability of your success has been lowered. So that was sort of the first thing that I've learned, and I learned it from a good friend of mine, a good classmate. Second thing, which is the second law of thermodynamics. Now, I'm an energy engineer, or renewable energy. And the second law of thermodynamics is actually something that has quite affected me in life, this principle. And there's a book actually about it, written by the American author, Steven Pinker. And in that book, he discusses how the second law of thermodynamics can be somewhat of an approach to life. So the second law of thermodynamics states that in an isolated system, which is one that is not taking in energy, entropy never decreases. And the point of that is that energy is always needed to keep things in order. And that if less energy is spent, less effort, for example, is spent, then things will become more chaotic. And you see that in our regular day-to-day life. In many of the movies that we watch, movies that about something post-apocalyptic, you'd always see the post-apocalyptic city looking like this. If you look at the city, the first thing you see is that it's very random, very chaotic. Trees go into the buildings and into cars, and insects everywhere, and spider webs and whatnot. And this will apply to your home. And if you leave your home for 1 year and you come back, then your home is in a worse situation than it was if you would have stayed. Because if you would have stayed, you would have spent more energy in cleaning your home and taking care of it and organizing your folders and your files and sort of your drawers and your rooms and whatnot. And so this is one of the things that I've learned, which is energy and effort is always needed in order to sustain things. And this applies to everything. It applies to your work, your study, your students. So you probably are going through this. The more energy you spend on it, you are increasing the likelihood of that component of your life being orderly and being organized. And that's why it's so important to me. And it's a very useful thing that I've learned, which is the second law of thermodynamics. Just with enough time, enough effort, enough energy, you'll find yourself at a better position at the very least. And again, you are increasing the chances or the probability of your success. So this is a photo. These are two photos, one from 1945 and the other one is from 2020 of Hiroshima, Japan. And so Hiroshima, Japan in 1945 was leveled by an atomic bomb. And this is how it looked like. And in 2020, this is how it looks like. It's probably better than many cities that did not go through the same experience. And this did not happen in an instant. So time was needed. However, a lot of energy, a lot of effort were spent in order to achieve this. Number 3, always evolve. So always evolve. What do I mean by that? Well, for those of you who watch the MCU universe, or who watch the Iron Man movies, you would see one character, which is Tony Stark, which is the guy who plays sort of the Iron Man character. And the thing about this character is that what's always fascinated me about it is that it's always evolving. It's always becoming better. Every single time it becomes better. It's always having a new feature. I've assembled a couple of those photos and tried to see all the mock designs that were created for Iron Man. And you can see how there's always this simple beginning. You can see that in the very far left. And then you have more features added to it, and then more improvements, and then improved visual appearance, and then improved safety measures, and then improved portability, and then improved control, etc. So then the continuous improvement in every movie you watch that involves Iron Man, you always see the character improving. And this is something that has really motivated me a lot in life, to always look for that aspect of improvement. So this also applies to our daily life. It applies to the history of mankind. In the 1960s, this is how big a computer was, probably take like a whole storage facility. And today you can have it in the palm of your hands. So this is the evolution of computers, and you can see how it's always evolving. So maybe you could ask yourself a question, how much I've evolved in 2016, 2017, 2018, all the way to 2021, and how can I evolve in 2022? So this element of evolution should always be on your mind, because those who evolve are more capable of adapting to the ever-changing world around them. So from my perspective, from my experience, I've evolved this way. So then when I was an engineering student, I thought, all right, then, what can I do? What can I do? All right, I'm going to participate in as much activities as I could. So then I was helping seniors in the lab with their design course or their final year project. I was working on my CV. I was tutoring some of my classmates. I was having certain extracurricular activities. I joined international societies. I think some of you are doing that right now, which is the IEEE. I applied to and worked on some research projects, and I attended some internships. As you can see, this is a lot of activities, a lot of new experiences. But then I said, all right, so now it's time to develop even more. And so as a PhD candidate, I was like, all right, now it's time to develop. What am I going to do? Well, let's do some research. So I became a researcher, a peer reviewer. I expanded more into my CV. I became a co-editor, research assistant. I started helping other people at the lab. I authored a book chapter, and I authored a book, and I participated in international competitions. So then you can see how there's an evolution from from my sort of journey in Sohar University, and then my later on journey in UKM, in the National University of Malaysia, when I was doing my PhD. And this evolution is what I urge you to do, or at least to consider, is how much can you evolve in the time period that you will be spending at Sohar University, and then moving forward. Again, as a postdoctoral researcher, I did more research. I expanded my network. I chaired curriculum sessions. And when I became a university lecturer, I participated in more international conferences, supervised master degree students, PhD degree candidates, and then done a couple of advisories for companies. And now at AUIS, I'm focusing on more teaching as well. So I'm trying to sort of evolve in that direction as well. So you could see how in life you can assume so many roles that you could sort of be useful for. They do require of you more time and more effort to adapt to them. But then the more you evolve, the more you can go through life experiences, and the more so you could keep up with the ever-changing world, as I mentioned. So again, some of the roles, you could be a university lecturer, a researcher, author, international peer reviewer, journal co-editor, advisor, and so on. I try to go through as many roles as I could. So that's one of the things you should have kind of consider. Back to evolution, this is my early on CV. And then I sort of improved upon it, and then I continued to improve upon it. And then I thought, you know what, why have a CV if you can just have a website that people can refer to and see what you have done? So then I created my own website. And so it's things like that, where you are having a continuous changing and adapting to new environments, adapting to new technologies. So think, what are the new technologies around you? How can you adapt to them? That's one of the things to consider. And point number 4 would be to search for authenticity. Now, what do I mean by that? Sometimes with engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical, chemical, and whatnot, you are boxed sort of into a particular approach, like a conventional, traditional approach. And that can somewhat reduce your creativity. It made you only look for traditional solutions and not for more creative, let's say, problem formulations or solution interpretations and whatnot. And so this is where you search for authenticity. Think about the things that you are interested in. You could do this at home. You could sort of a small PowerPoint and bring pictures of the things that sort of inspire you. And then in this PowerPoint, I put a couple of pictures of some of the things that inspired me and that I was interested in. And then I thought, well, actually, this is pretty much the direction that I took in research and the direction that I took in my PhD as well. So I've always been interested in engineering. And then, sort of electrical engineering. That's where I got my bachelor's degree from Sohar University, renewable energy, and more specifically solar energy, and then more specifically PVT technology, which maybe later on we could sort of provide some kind of intro to it, but not in this seminar. So then think about the pyramid of knowledge or interest that you have from a broader sense to a more specific sense. This is how you can sort of search for authenticity. What are the things that you are interested in? What are the problems that you want to solve? These problems could exist in Sohar. It could exist in Oman in general, or maybe in the Gulf region or in the Middle East. Many problems we face today with regards to energy that require engineering solutions. And this could be an opportunity for you to excel or to fill a market gap and sort of have your own business to it. So this is why authenticity is very important. This is sort of my PhD work. I worked on the performance of photovoltaic thermal collectors with nanofluids and nanophase change material. And I published, I successfully filed a patent for it. These are some of the proposed criteria by me and some of the models that are formulated for the proposed system. Number 5, explore your limits. Pretty much most of them have sort of touched upon this concept of how you could explore your limits. And this starts actually from Dr. Hussein. Dr. Hussein, is, some of you know or not, he's my father actually. And one day we were in Sohar in Al Tarif, maybe Al Tarif Street, and he was driving, and I was asking him, what is it like to be a university professor? And he said, oh, this is what we do. We teach students, we go to conferences, we do some research, we do this, we do that. And I remember asking him, wow, like, this is so cool, like do you do that, because you enjoy it? Or he goes, yeah, I pretty much enjoy it. And I thought, hey, maybe one day I'm going to become an assistant professor like you. And I vividly remember him stopping the car and telling me, actually, my dream was to become an astronaut, but that dream failed. And that's why I became a university professor. So maybe you should sort of aim higher. And this is related to exploring your limits. Sometimes you are aiming too low. So then always try to think outside of the boundaries of Sohar. Sohar could be a very chilled place. It's really fun. It's really, down to earth. But then think of outside of those boundaries. Think of an international sense, a regional sense, and whatnot. Think how you can sort of excel, and how can you, are you actually aiming for the highest that you could, or is there even something higher than what you are aiming for? So that's one of the things I would like you to consider if you're going to consider this. So I started aiming for more memberships in international societies and becoming part of a greater task, so to speak. So these are some of the memberships that I have in some of those societies that you can also join. Perhaps more competitive to IEEE. Another thing is I was like exploring my limits when it comes to publishing. So then I started to publish with more, international journals like Renewable and Sustainable Energy Reviews and Solar Energy, case studies in thermal engineering, and International Journal of Energy Research, and then much more, so many others. And then I started to explore even more limits, more challenges, sort of a bigger perspective, like first book chapter published in 2017 by Springer International Publishing. And then another book chapter in 2020, also by Springer Nature, and 2 book chapters also published by Springer Nature. And so then all of these are about sort of exploring more of those limits that I mentioned. Number 6 is to find a mentor. This is so important. It's very important. So my mentor was actually my professor, who is also my supervisor at Solar Energy Research Institute of the National University of Malaysia, Professor Amar Zaman Sufyan. And this also goes back to the topic of exploring your limits. I remember first time I met him, I had an idea about a simple system, and he looked at it and then he laughed and he said, "What is this? What are you trying to do?" And I said, "Oh, this is the idea for my PhD." And he says, "I've got a couple of $1 million worth laboratories, and you want to do this very simple idea? Like, do you think you're actually challenging yourself with that? Do you think you're actually utilizing the resources that you have?" And so that was one of the moments where I was taught to sort of think in bigger terms and sort of expand my mind and how I view things. And so having a mentor is very important, I found, because a mentor is someone, let's think of it like think of it as if someone has crossed a sort of a land filled with mines, and they sort of crossed it, you know, safely. Well, then sort of the way they did it, you may not want to do the exact same way, but at the very least, you know that the way they did it is a successful way. It's a successful approach. And they can always give you from their experience, feed you off from their experience, and then challenge you. And so then finding a mentor and having that mentor teach you and sort of project you towards a sort of a more successful position, and also towards challenging yourself more, is very critical, especially for those of you who would like to remain in academia and prove yourself in academia as well. You need to have a mentor. You need to have a really good supervisor. I would actually say that choosing the supervisor, if you're planning to do your master's degree or your PhD degree, is more important than the university itself. Many people go for supervisors, not universities. So then this is another important one, which is to have a good mentor. Number 7, grow your discipline. Maybe some of you might find this a bit harder. It's not easy. I'm not saying you should be very disciplined. I'm saying grow it. Grow it. You can do that gradually. And this is something I've learned much from an American athlete. This is an American athlete. His name is Chael Pisanen. And he said, whether I want to be at practice or not, I show up every day. Whether I'm healthy or I'm sick or hurt or tired, I show up every day. I never ever miss. And I think discipline is a big deal. Now, I would sort of object to the whole sick thing. If you are sick, please don't show up, especially during these days. So kindly stay home if you are sick, or go to the hospital or whatever. But then the concept is the same. Discipline goes a long way, especially if you're going to be in a competitive environment. Being in a competitive environment, you need to be disciplined, and discipline beats motivation all the time. I can, we can give you a speech and that'll get you motivated for half an hour, or maybe you can hear some music and that'll get you motivated as well. But motivation goes up and down. What remains constant is discipline. So what do I mean by that? Well, hey, I don't want to go to Dr. Hussein class. Well, I'm going to go there whether I want to or not. I don't want to work on this particular topic. Well, I'm going to work on this topic whether I want to or not. It's sometimes you're going to have to force yourself in order to move forward. So this is another, I believe, is another important point. Number 8, seek competence. Now, today's world, we are living in a capitalistic society, and everyone expects you to do your absolute best. Nobody wants to hire someone that is not going to be useful for them. Nobody. Maybe, some of you might, some people might get some wasta or might get some help here and there, but it will not serve them for the long run, especially when there's an economic distraught, or when the economic situation is not very clear. Those who are not useful and unproductive are the first to be let go. So this is one of the things that you need to do. You need to seek competence, not just to keep your job or to get a job, but also to have a purpose in life. And seeking confidence means that you should be the best that you can be, whatever that you do. You don't have to be the best professor. You could be the best anything. You could be the best actor, the best teacher, the best, I don't know, shoemaker, the best barber, and so on. So then seeking competence means that not only doing it every day, but also trying to improve upon yourself and sort of reach into that sort of point where you're at a state of flow, where people admire your products or services. So this is another one that I will recommend for you. Some of you might want to be a good dad. Well, be the best dad ever or the best mom ever and whatnot. So then be the best that you can be. That's the whole point of it. Here you can see some of the famous characters that you probably know from sports and science, like Lionel Messi, Muhammad Ali from boxing, and Professor Richard Feynman. And then there are so many more. And what distinguishes these gentlemen from other people is the fact that they are very competent and at the top of their field. And so can you be with enough work, with enough effort. Maybe we can circle back to the second law of thermodynamics, with more time and energy spent on this. This could be a way for you to prepare yourself, not just to be successful, but to be someone that others can depend on. And someone that others can depend on is someone that is irreplaceable in most working environments. Here is another example of someone who always was interested in competence. Steve Jobs was the former chairman, ex CEO, and the co-founder of Apple. I think all of you got iPhones and whatnot, and Apples and so on, and iPads and whatnot. Well, he was notorious for being someone who admires competence and who is interested in competence. And sort of, if you're going to do something, do the best that you could, and sort of provide high quality products or services. So then think about your assignments, think about your homeworks if you're students, think about the projects that you're working in. All of those, you should always aim for them to be of high quality and to be a tough judge on yourself. So then it starts very small. And then in the year 2000, it became $5 billion. And now it's sort of projected itself somewhere so high. And these big jumps don't happen out of nothing. It happens out of reputation. In order to have those kind of big jumps all the way to $1 trillion. This is Apple's market capitalization at the end of the respective year, 2018. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that your reputation stands on every piece of work that you do. There are students with good reputation, those who can produce high quality products, high quality services, high quality assignments, homeworks, projects, and whatnot. So then think about that in this perspective or in this environment, and then think about that in your future environments. Do you want to be known as someone who gets the job done and does it well? Or do you want to be known as someone who is lousy, always late, never gets the job done? It's up to you, but I think that seeking competence is very important, and remaining idle is not helpful, not in a competitive environment. So in my own personal life, I've always been trying to sort of seek competence and then try to improve myself in my research capabilities. And so in my world, and this is my little achievements, let's say, which is the best that I could do, is publishing at international journals, some of my research at international journals, and then trying to always remind myself that we can do it. People can do it in China, people can do it in Japan, people can do it in America. We can do it. You can do it in Sahara, you can do it in Muscat, you can do it in Oman, you can do it in all of the Gulf region and whatnot. You don't have anything less than them. You may not have all the funding that you want, but you can do it. So seeking competence, slowly, gradually growing yourself, evolving, all of these things, if they're sort of integrated into one approach, you could sort of find yourself seeking competence, propelling yourself to more success in academia and beyond. So this is perhaps my proudest achievement, which is my first published book. I published it in 2020 by Springer Nature. And the usage of the book reached around 1,735, which is how many chapter downloads from January 2020 to September 2020. So I was kind of proud of that because it was the first textbook in PVT technology in my field. And this is just another example of, from my personal experience, how I try to seek competence to improve myself and improve the process in which I produce or serve, and how I can have a product of some quality, or of good quality. Same thing when it comes to competitions and memberships and sort of awards and whatnot. So this is another thing also that I thought about. That you can also participate in competition. Think, what are the competitions around you? What are the exhibitions? And then how can you produce something and then improve upon it, and then improve upon it, and then improve upon it until you have it worthy of not only winning awards, but worthy of becoming a business idea, something that you can incorporate in either private or governmental sector, for that matter. And again, these are some of the other things. As I mentioned, I'm a bit uncomfortable sharing some of those. We'll move on to number 9. Enjoy the little detours in life. So this is actually something that I've learned from an anime series. And one of the characters is like the protagonist, the father of the protagonist. And this character, Gene Freaks, he says, you should enjoy the little detours to the fullest, because that's where you'll find the things more important than what you want. And in essence is that if you achieve everything you want tomorrow morning, you will have nothing to live for. But enjoying the little detours, enjoying, helping out a friend, or going to study with your college mates, or trying to create a project, not for the sake of grades, or not for the sake of, commercializing it, but sometimes just for the sake of fun, for the sake of doing something, for the sake of learning. So these little detours is what you should try to enjoy. If I look at my journey, I started from Sohar University from 2012 to 2016, and from 2016 to 19 in UKM as a PhD candidate, and as a postdoc from 19 to 20, and as a lecturer from 20 to 21, and here as a lecturer all the way since 21. I don't really see this. This is not what we see. I see all the memories that I've had, all the works that I've done, all the people that I've collaborated with, all the experience that I've gone through. And so I think that this is also what you're going to see after you graduate and moving on forward. So put that in mind, put that into perspective. How can you enjoy the little detours and not always be, up to a certain task or up to a certain objective? Don't let the end objective consume you. From time to time, stop for a second and observe what you're doing, and truly enjoy it. Truly enjoy it, because once you graduate, it's a completely different experience and you're probably going to miss it. So this is during my time in Sohar University. I think now it looks, more, looks better now, more buildings and whatnot. And this is my project when I was doing my final year project, which is comparison study of photovoltaic and diesel pumping system for rural areas in Oman. And this is when I did my PhD in renewable energy at UKM University. So this is where I did my PhD. And those are the memories that I have of them. Number 10, we're close there. Number 10, give back. This is a very important one, perhaps the most important one to look after as you move on in life. Give back. So why do I do what I do? There's an Arab proverb, or an Arab saying, that goes by, they planted so we can harvest, and we plant so they can harvest. And what it means is that it's a process. One day you are taught, and the next day you are teaching. One day you are helped, and the next day you are helping. So think how you can contribute back to Sohar, right? You've lived your whole life in Sohar, or maybe in some other places at Batana Shamal, or in Sultanate Oman. Think how you can give back to your city. How can you give back to your community, to your family, in terms of anything, research, business, maybe some kind of educational seminars. You can do something like the seminar I'm doing in your local community, educating the young children, going to schools and giving presentations. So why do we do what we do? We do it because we are part of a process, and this process has been going on since the beginning of mankind, sorry, since the beginning of the human race. And we could just continue to sort of gain knowledge and hand it to the next generations. And it all stems from gratitude. You should have gratitude. It's a good emotion to have. Being having gratitude towards life, having gratitude towards how lucky you are to receive this education. There are so many places around the world that don't get the education you get, that don't get the resources that you have. And so you should have gratitude for every opportunity you get, and then that should propel you to sort of give back. And in my personal experience as a peer reviewer, I worked as a peer reviewer, and I've done a lot of peer reviews over the course of the years. These peer reviews, I don't make any money off of them. They take a lot of my time, a lot of my effort, but I do them to give back to the scientific community. And I think that you should sort of find a way to give back, however small you may think it is. So this is some of the peer review that I've done over the course of the years and so on. Number 11, this is crucial as you are developing. Because you are developing, if you can have this sort of mindset, it will help you a lot, which is focus on your strengths. A lot of people might think it is more productive or it's more safe to sort of improve their weaknesses or become holistic in every sense. I disagree with that. I don't think that that's the case. If you think about all the people who, or most of the people who find success in life, are those who count on their strengths, who focus on their strengths. So again, it does not mean that you should stay in your comfort zone. It means do what you are good at. I think you will reach far in life using your strengths. So if your strength is from a mathematical perspective, then be the math person. You know, if your strength is in electronics and IT and coding and software, then focus on that. Don't think, well, hey, I'm not as good as in handiwork as other people. The industry and academia both reward specialization. So the more specialized you are, the more likely you are to be rewarded financially and else. And this also applies to society. Society rewards specialization. This is not a call for you not to work on your weaknesses, but it is a call for you to identify your strengths and then utilize them. So always ask yourself, what are my strengths as an engineer, for example? All right, I'm an electrical engineer. Am I good at math? All right, if I'm not good at math, maybe that's a problem, but am I intuitively good? Do I intuitively understand circuits? Well, am I handy good? So are my hands good? Can I sort of create circuits with my hands? And then, you know, you could sort of, there are so many dimensions that you can look through and then sort of choose the dimension in which you find yourself having a strength and then sort of, you know, focus on that. So this is a quote by Albert Einstein. Maybe I put maybe between two brackets because every 2 days there's a new quote given to Albert Einstein. So we're not really sure if this is made by Albert Einstein, but nonetheless, it says, everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid, which means you cannot evaluate people based on their weaknesses. You should evaluate people based on their strength. And you should move forward in life based on your strengths. So then try to identify them, try to think about them. And if you see something that is sort of you're a natural at, or maybe something that you've acquired, then maybe you should focus on that and you should dedicate more time to it and become a specialist in that sense. These are some of the people, actually, this is, I have a couple examples, but this is Michael Jordan. I don't know how many of you know Michael Jordan. He's sort of the older generation. Now everybody knows LeBron James, but Michael Jordan was a basketball player and he's the greatest of all time, basically. He's the greatest basketball player ever. That was his strength. And then when he retired, he decided to play baseball. And as a baseball player, he was one of the worst. I mean, he wasn't even close. It was a complete flop. And this is one of the things that sort of I use as a exhibit A, let's say, that the fact that when he focused on his strengths, he was able to be very successful and inflict a lot of good change and positive impact But when he focused on his weaknesses, or when he tried to play using his weaknesses, he constricted himself too much, and that sort of limited him and sort of inhibited him from a successful career at a particular sport. Which leads me to the four burner theory. This is the four burner theory. So I think it was produced by David Sedaris. So the four burner theory is basically, if you're at home and if you have a burner, and this burner is connected to only one gas tank. So you only have one gas tank, but then you have four burners in it, and they're all connected to the same gas tank. So then if, let's say, one burner is operating at 80%, then the rest are going to share the 20% left. And if two burners are operating at 50, then the others will be operating at 50. And this is one way to sort of view your life and where you are at life. At some points, work may take more of your life, and it become more of a 70-30. So 70 for your work and 30 for the remaining parts. Or perhaps work and health, or family and friends and whatnot. So then try to sort of think about how much time do you spend per dimension, per life dimension, and what are your priorities? And then according to those priorities, because you do know that you only have 24 hours a day, and you have just a limited amount of energy. That's the gas tank in this metaphor. So you have a very limited gas tank, and because of that, you need to know how much energy you're going to spend on each and every one of those dimensions based on your priorities, or according to your priorities. Number 12. So yeah, know where you stand. So knowing where you stand. This is a call for you to remind yourself of your moral compass. A moral compass is what is good and what is bad. What do you stand for? What do you perceive to be good, to be ethical, to be right? You have to know where you stand. You're going to be in work environments, maybe in study environments, and you're going to be subjected to certain situations. And if you don't know where you stand, you will not be making decisions. And don't forget this. Every second you spend not making a decision, you are essentially delegating the decision to other people. So if on Monday you don't make a decision, other people will make a decision for you on Tuesday. So then do not delay those decision makings. And the best way in order to make decisions is to have a moral compass, is to know what you stand for. So knowing where you stand from an ethical perspective is also very important. It's important in academia, and it's important and beyond. Finally, failure and contradictions. So yeah, with failure and contradictions, you can see here, I think most of you have rode a bicycle, and with a bicycle, you're going to fail a lot. You're going to, especially the first couple of times you're going to do it, first couple of days, you're going to fail a lot until you get the hang of it. Same applies to swimming or any other skill that you might acquire. So then don't be defined by your failure. Don't say, oh, my GPA is too low. I didn't do good. I failed a couple of times. I wasn't good at school. People think I'm not good. People, whatever. Don't think about that. Do not define yourself by your failures. Instead, learn from them. Every failure is an opportunity for you to learn. Embrace them. Say, yes, this is another failure. I'm going to add it to my failure record. And then you move on, you move forward, and you try to sort of, cultivate yourself in order to try again. And then if you fail, then you try again, and so on. So this is sort of the last sort of component to this presentation or this seminar. I want to thank you for listening and for attending. And if you have any questions, please, you may ask. So I think that this is the Q&A section. So I'm going to stop the sharing, and I'm going to move on to the camera.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ali. Really interesting. I mean, thank you for sharing your experience in related to academia and beyond. I think many points have been highlighted, which is really motivate many of our students in IEEE. And I was happy that to see some of our colleagues from different universities attended. Thank you for some of Pro VC for some international university also outside Oman, they attended. Thank you for IEEE Sohar University branch for organizing this. So we still have another 15 minutes before we close this webinar. So please, if you have any question, English or Arabic, you feel free to ask. It's good to share your idea, your queries. If you have any question in your mind, please go ahead. I mean, the mic with everybody. You can ask. I will postpone my questions to the end. IEEE group, if you have questions. Afifa, Shamsa, Amal, Fatima, Khalifa.
Oh, the mic is disabled. So,
Oh,
oh, I
sorry.
forgot to, yeah, I'll try to enable the mics. All right. So now I think I've reinstated the unmute feature.
So I wanted to know what according to you is the key to academic success?
The key to, according to me, that's an interesting one because it's sort of it's already a restricted question. Is what's the key, the one key? I would say, from my perspective, it has been teamwork. It has been working in teams. If there's one above all, is teamwork. You need to prove that you are sort of capable of working in a team environment and that people can count on you, so that when they say, all right, you're going to do this task, so all right, you're going to do this document, they know and they depend on the fact that this document will be done. If they can't trust you with that, and sort of you're going to keep them up at night thinking whether you're going to deliver or not, then you're going to sort of be picked last, let's say, and you will not be an effective team member, and you will not have more collaborations. A lot about academia today has something to do with collaborations. Most of my work has been collaborations. I don't like to work alone. I don't support the idea of working alone. I think that you have to always work in a team, because two minds are better than one, and five are better than two, and so on. And so if there's one key that I can sort of, again, I mean, I'm speaking about success in academia. My success is very limited. I'm not that successful in academia, but for my limited success, it has been teamwork. And I've had many colleagues or friends, let's say, who chose to go through the lone path, to sort of be alone and not collaborate with others. And it's sort of, you get less of an opportunity to delegate the work. And also it forces you to become more of a generalist than a specialist. As I've mentioned in the PowerPoint, being a specialist means, you're good at something and then you just focus on that one thing. And what that helps is that, or how that could help you in that sense, is that when you are part of a unit, you can sort of just carry over that task, and you can do it as much as possible. And you could be a part of many units, many teams. So for instance, if you are good at graphics and graphical user interface, then you could be working for 7 different engineering teams, just working on graphical user interface. So then people are counting on you. And so then now you can sort of collaborate with others. So not to focus too much on specialization, but to mention how it's important to be a part of a team, because being a part of a team means you can delegate the work. So let's say if I'm having some kind of trouble, I can sort of give the work to someone else. All right, you took care of it. And you will see that a lot. You will see that a lot, maybe inside the university when you are doing your lab reports. It's usually the first 2 people who are doing most of the lab reports. The last 3 are just either printing it, or they don't even know what's going on. Well, that's not a good way to do it. A good way to do it, and to develop sort of a good sense of being a part of an engineering environment, is sort of to develop your teamwork and team leadership skills. The other thing is, as we are moving more towards automation, many of the jobs are lost, and many of the technical aspects that an engineer could do, or maybe a non-engineer could do, are now being automized or being taken over by AI. And so with that aspect, you need to sort of consider the sense that a lot of institutes today focus on soft skills, your ability to talk to your colleagues, your ability to sort of pitch a new idea, your ability to be a part of a, let's say, a productive meeting or an international collaboration and whatnot. So then think about those. Think about, so I would say the key is teamwork in my humble opinion. Yeah. I hope this answered the question.
Intensively. I mean, any other question, please? If in Arabic, it's okay. He can answer in Arabic. Dr. Ali can answer in Arabic.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
دكتور علي، من خلال خبرتك في البحث العلمي ماذا تنصحنا أن نفعل ونحن على أبواب التخرج؟
أبواب التخرج، إذا كان عندكم شكرا على السؤال، إذا كان عندكم اهتمام في التوجه إلى الدراسات العليا مثل الماجستير والدكتوراه أو حتى الانضمام كعضو تدريسي، فبرأيي البحث العلمي جدا مهم. إذا ما كان هذا الاهتمام موجود، برأيي استغلال البحث العلمي قد يكون أهم، يعني قراءة البحث العلمي. أما إذا تريدون أنه تنضمون إلى الجانب الأكاديمي والاستمرار على الجانب الأكاديمي، فأنصح بالدخول في جانب البحث العلمي. كيف راح يكون الدخول؟ الدخول لازم يكون دخول تدريجي. إذا في كلمتين ممكن أقولها، طبعا هي طرق أو أساليب البحث العلمي، research methodology، تقدرون تبحثون عنها. واحدة من الأمور الجيدة أو الإيجابية جدا في هذا العصر إنه كثير من الأمور اللي إحنا كنا نقدر نقدمها كأساتذة وغيرها الآن موجودة على اليوتيوب، موجودة على يوديمي وغيرها من المواقع. فممكن تنظرين إلى أسس البحث العلمي. فأسس البحث العلمي إذا عرفت الطريقة كيف يصنع البحث العلمي، بعدين تقدرين توظفيها في أي فكرة تمتلكيها. أما من حيث إيش هي الفكرة اللي حتكون موجودة، دائما فكري من هذا المنطلق. هذا وجهة نظري، اللي هي منطلق شنو المشاكل الموجودة بالمجتمع اللي أنا عايشة به. شنو هي المشاكل الموجودة؟ يعني شنو هي المشاكل الموجودة في سلطنة عمان؟ فبعض الأمور قد تكون مثلا هناك في أمور فيها بطء، فيها قلة تخطيط، فيها احتياج إلى تطوير من جانب تقني، خصوصا من جانب تقني إذا كنت مهندسة أو من جانب إداري. فهناك دائما طريقة لوضع نص المشكلة، يعني تشرحين المشكلة بشكل مدقق، ثم تضعين الأهداف، وبعدين تقدرين تطبقين أسس وأساليب البحث العلمي من أجل حل المشكلة. واحدة من الأمور الجميلة في الجانب العلمي إنه الطريقة العلمية the scientific method، الجميل منها إنه ما يحتاج الشخص إنه يكون خارق الذكاء على مود ينجح. هذا يمكن اختلاط عند بعض الناس. الذكاء هو أو الآي كيو قد يكون هو بعض العناصر عنصر مساعد، ولكن في النهاية إذا راح تتبعي طريق وهذا الطريق يعني يشرح نفسه، فالمطلوب هو الجهد أكثر من أي شيء آخر. أنا شخصيا ما أعتبر نفسي إنسان ذكي، أعتبر نفسي إنسان مواظب ومهتم، فاتبعت الطريقة العلمية، والطريقة العلمية هي اللي وصلتني. بمعنى أنه تبحثين عن نص المشكلة، ثم تحددين الأهداف من البحث، ثم تتجهين إلى تحقيق كل هدف بطريقة ممنهجة. هذه المنهجية راح تسهل الأمور، لأنه يعني مسألة منطق أكثر من ما هي مسألة تفكير واستنتاجات، يعني أي أكثر ما هي مسألة ذكاء. أي بالطبع. أي فهذا وجهة نظري. ابحثي عن المشاكل، شوفي المشاكل اللي موجودة في المحيط اللي أنت عايشة به، ونفس الشيء فكري بحلول. الحلول ما لازم تكون من نفس التخصص، قد تكون من تخصصات أخرى، قد تكون حلول بسيطة جدا. كثير من الناس يفكرون بحلول ممتازة جدا بس يقولون مستحيل هذا تصير. لا بالعكس، استشيري واسألي واعتبريه نوع من فرصة لتطوير الجانب الفكري. وهذا واحدة من الطرق اللي الإنسان يقدر يتوجه بها إلى البحث العلمي. أما بالنسبة إذا أردت توجهين للبحث العلمي في أي مؤسسة أو في أي مكان، يعني هذا الموضوع يرجع إلى التخصص اللي راح تتخصصين به، راح نوعية الدراسة، المكان اللي راح تدرسين به. بعض الدول في الماجستير أو في الدكتوراه يكون التركيز أكثر على المواد مو على الجانب البحثي. دول أخرى مثل ماليزيا تركز على الجانب البحثي أكثر، فهذا يحتاج إلى نوع من التخطيط.
شكرا دكتور علي على وقتك الثمين.
تسلمين أشكرك.
طبعا بالمناسبة sorry I would like to thank the executive committee for IEEE for organizing this event. Engineer Amal, Engineer Fatma, Engineer Shamsa, Engineer Afifa. We still have another 6 minutes before we close this session. So if you have any question, please go ahead. You can ask.
I wanted to know what is the main motivation behind opting a career in renewable energy?
The main motivation for me, I will answer for me, and I will answer why should it be a motivation for other people. For me, I've always been interested in energy. Energy is a very interesting concept. Our whole world, our whole world, everything around us is energy. And without energy, I cannot even move this finger up and down. So everything that moves, everything that lives, everything that that surrounds us is energy. Energy is a very important concept, and I've always been fascinated with it. But in particular, renewable energy, I got interested in that. It was first introduced to me by Dr. Hussein, but I got to know more about it with time. And I've realized that it is a very simple premise. However, there's a lot of opposition to it. With renewable energy, we are facing a lot of changes that are happening in the past couple of decades related to climate change. I think maybe there's some maybe I'll move to this. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of issues that are happening globally when it comes to climate change. That some can dispute it. Some people can dispute it, but the arguments in favor of renewable energy for the rest of us are too many. For example, energy decentralization and autonomy. If you look at a farmer, someone who's a farmer in Oman, let's say somewhere near the Jabal al-Hajar mountains, and this farmer's got a big farm, and he needs electricity, he needs energy, but there's no way for the government to install transmission lines all the way just for one farmer for a very small load. It will cost the country too much money, and the return is not worth it. So then what does the farmer have to do? A diesel generator. And this diesel generator needs diesel or any other generator for that matter. Well, then this is where renewable energy comes in hand. Well, using photovoltaic solar cells or solar modules solves the problem. It solves it in an environmentally friendly way. It is becoming more cost effective. It is a useful solution. However, in many cases and in many countries, there have been an opposition to it. There have been a political opposition, and there have been somewhat of an economical opposition by other competing industries. So the energy wars are still going on. But for me, as a researcher and as a scientist, I view this as a very simple concept. The greatest source of energy that this planet is subjected to is the energy coming from the sun. Not fossil fuels, not anything. Most of the energy in this planet, or without it, the planet will be dead, essentially, is solar energy and is the energy coming from the sun. So why not capitalize on that? If we have the technology to do it, why not capitalize on that? And then you might hear some counter arguments to renewable energy, or particularly solar energy. Well, solar energy, the sun only shines during the day. It's like, yes, there are limitations to this technology, but every technology has limitations. The sun is not as shiny everywhere in the world. Yes, and oil doesn't exist everywhere in the world, or might exist, but it's not cost effective to sort of extract it. And so the world is heading in that direction. China is heading in that direction in a major way. The United States of America is also committed, and many other European countries are committed to this technology. However, the countries that most benefit from it, or the most that have adequate amount of solar irradiation, are not really capitalizing on it. So that's what sort of gave me the motivation to think, well, wait a second. Everything about this technology tells me that it has huge potential, and it can be very useful for us in order to solve all of our energy issues, yet we are so reluctant to adapt to it. Now, I'm not saying we should completely replace fossil fuels. We are still not at that stage, but the shift and the move towards alternative energies has to start at some time. Me and Dr. Hussein, we've been doing research for the past at least like 9 years or something, and even more perhaps. And we've been calling for this. And now you can see more examples of this all around Sohar, all around Oman, the United Arab Emirates has been doing also some great work in there. Saudi Arabia, a lot of my research colleagues have been telling me about so many projects, big funds for solar energy applications and technologies. So you can see that there's a huge shift, and this shift will not exist if there is no actual benefit from it. No company or body or institute are going to waste their money to do something for the good of the environment. If we know anything about companies, and we know anything about some of the terrible practices of some of the capitalistic components, it is that environment and people are generally at the very low, at the very bottom of the hierarchy, and profit usually drives it. Well, I would say that solar energy is profitable with more economies of scale, more production. The price of solar energy is going to drop down, and the same applies to other technologies. All the technical problems that are always used as arguments against renewable energy are problems that the scientists in renewable energy discuss. There's not a single paper or research article on solar energy or renewable energy that doesn't have a problem statement. So all the problems about dust and temperature and drop in efficiency and aging and whatnot, they're all problems that we have discussed before they are offered by the opposition to this technology. My stake is not in it. So if by one day, if I'm doing research and if we're reading books and there's enough scientific consensus that says that there's a better solution, then I would be very happy to recommend against renewable energy and solar energy. But for the time being, we can see scientific consensus when it comes to the utility of renewable energy and solar energy utilization. And I think that Oman has a bright future when it comes to that. I think maybe we can have future opportunities to discuss that more in detail with regards to how Oman can sort of utilize renewable energy technologies in a way that is both sustainable, but also a way that sort of go in hand with the Omani values and culture and traditions and whatnot. So I hope I answered it.
Thank you.
I think, Dr. Ali, we are on the end of the time. I think, yeah, six. We have 2 minutes past 6. I think we stop questions until this point. The name of IEEE branch or Sohar University, I would like to thank Dr. Ali from American University in Iraq for having this webinar and sharing his idea, experience, knowledge related to academia and research. And thank you all for all attendees in this workshop. I'm looking for another opportunity to have more discussion with Dr. Ali in another, let me say, topics. Dr. Ali, Mike, with you to close and to...
Yeah, again, I would like to reiterate that I would like to thank IEEE Oman section, Sohar University branch. I would like to thank the students, your engagement, the questions, very, very interesting. And I think that being a part of those extracurricular activities is part of evolving. It's part of that, those concepts that I laid out in the seminar. I would like to thank you. I'm humbled that you are here. And I hope that you can take some of these points with you. Consider them. Don't take them as the word. No, just consider them, criticize them. If they don't apply to your life, don't use them. Sort of take that with a grain of salt, let's say. Aside from that, I would like to thank you all for having me, and perhaps we will chat again soon.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Ali, can you close the session?
I will end the session right now. All right then.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.